Hey, good morning, Grace College. I am so thrilled to be introducing our chapel speaker today. Her name is Serena Draper. She has really inspired me over the years. I met her last year. And it's been neat this year to watch how God has really used her and really have worked through her during trials in her life. Also, Serena will be having a book study about pondering privilege. So please pay attention to the lowdown and attend that. So here she is.
Oh my gosh. Hello. Thanks, Henrietta, for those really kind words. You're awesome, and I love you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I know it's required, and I know everybody makes that joke, but thank you anyways for being here. I also want to start off by saying that it's super ironic that I'm sharing my origin story today. Like in May when they announce a new theme and everyone's really excited, like you're on the edge of your seat and the lights dim and there's a hush comes over the room. And the theme starts playing, and then it announces, and I remember it saying origins, and I thought it doesn't really apply to me. Whatever, I guess it'll be cool. We'll have some good messages. But wow, how wrong I was. And as I will share, this year has been a new origin for me in more ways than I can imagine, and God has used it to shape my life. But first, have you ever been so convinced of something, so sure of something in your core, like either something was going to happen or something was not going to happen, and subconsciously you maybe thought God himself cannot change this from happening, but of course we wouldn't say that because that's sacrilegious, right? Nobody, none of us want to be out here committing blasphemy. So we wouldn't say that, but sometimes we get in our minds and we're so convinced that something either is or isn't going to happen, and we hold on to it so tightly that when it either does or doesn't happen, that everything just changes. So one of those things for me actually was in high school. One of my best friend's older sisters came to Grace and would never shut up about it, and I was I am never going to Grace College. I refuse. And 5 years later, here we are. But I've loved my time at Grace. I really have. It's been so far 3.5 years, and I'm finishing up my last semester. I'm a fourth-year senior studying finance and management. I've been a student mentor, so shout out to any of my former mentees in the room. I'm also an RA for the Loft, so shout out to all our Lofties. Shout out to my cluster mates. You guys are awesome. And so throughout this last couple years, and especially the last year or two, my life felt, or probably looked from the outside, picture perfect. I was in a really awesome, really strong relationship. We were planning on getting married and getting engaged and all that fun stuff. I had, several internships and had volunteer work. I had student leadership positions. I was doing well in school with my grades. I had friends. But through all of that, there was something inside of me that just felt off. Something inside of me just felt unsettled. Something wasn't at peace with the path that I was on. And it didn't make any sense at all, because the path I was on was a good path, college, internship, job, marriage, retirement, family, all of those things. My life had this perfect linear trajectory, and nothing was going to change that. So, but it, like I said, it didn't make sense, and part of that was, like I said, I'm studying finance, and it's really interesting, and I love that, and I will be the first person to brag on our business school and say that business is a ministry for God to use for others. But for me, something was just, it didn't feel like that's where I was supposed to be. But again, I was 3 years in, I can't really change my major the end of my junior year of school. And so part of that was handcuff on one hand, saying, okay, I'm doing this, I've had these internships, my life is, I'm going to be in corporate America. And on the other hand, it was pressure from my parents, and I love my parents dearly, and they believe in me. But my mom has told me for years, like, Serena, like, you're gonna be a CEO one day. Like, you have what it takes to climb the corporate ladder, and like, you're gonna kick butt and be awesome and everything. So I had the school pressure on one hand, I had my parents' pressures on the other hand, so I felt handcuffed. And also just internally was like, oh wow, like, I really don't like this, but I don't have another option. I don't have anything else that I feel like I would even want to do. I just feel unsettled. And so all of this was kind of coming to a head this time last school year. And I remember talking with a really good friend of mine, and she was like, well, like, you're really relational, so why don't you think about doing, like, grad school for higher ed? And something inside me just, like, clicked, and that resonated with me so much. But here's the thing. I had, the both handcuffs, and also, like, I was going to be getting married as soon as I graduate, and I can't, like, logistically, like, I'm such a planner, it's not even funny. But logistically, like, that just wasn't going to work. And so I had the two handcuffs, and I had the thing that I wanted but, like, couldn't attain. And so I was kind of, like, wrestling with that. And I just kept having this feeling of, like, wow, I really want to do that, but I don't know how that's going to happen. And at the same time, so last January, it was right before RA hiring. And again, I was having lunch with a really good friend, and she was like, yeah, like, you should apply. And what I had told a couple of people, but wasn't telling really a lot of people, was that, like, when I was moving in last school year in August, I remember, like, moving a box and thinking, like, I should be an RA. I was like, where did that come from? Because I always swore I would never be an RA. Like, I always, like swore to myself, like, I'm not going to do that. Like, it's just, like, I have, like, friends who are RAs, and, like, they love it, but they're so busy, and I'm not going to do that to myself. Plus, like, going into my senior year, like, I just want to, like, get engaged, graduate, get married, and, like, get through the rest as, like, painlessly as possible. But throughout the rest of that school year, I kept having this recurring feeling of, I should really be an RA. And every time I was like, no, like, shove it down inside. We're not going to talk about it. Really, really healthy, right? And so I just kept having this thought. And then when I had lunch with this friend who was like, like, asked me why I didn't apply. And I was like, well, and I, like, gave her all my reasons. And she just kind of looked at me and was like, you need to apply. I was like, okay, fine. So here I am. I'm an RA now. And so here I am, like, getting ready to go to summer at the end of last school year with two things that don't make sense. One, I really want to go to grad school for higher ed, but no idea how that was going to happen, thinking that it wasn't going to happen. And also, I'm an RA, even though I swore I would never be an RA. We're seeing a trend here. Going into summer, it was like, okay, summer, like, I have this really rockin' internship. It's going to be great. Even though I don't want to be in corporate America, and this feels like a little bit like handcuffs, I am going to, like, rock it positively, and it's going to be great. And then I'm going to go through senior year, get through it as quickly and painlessly as possible, because my goal was just to get married. And then summer happened. And so the first 6 weeks, the guy I was dating was in China. He was teaching English, studying abroad. He came back, and it should have been this utopia of, wow, it's summertime, it's warm outside, like, I'm going to be in his brother's wedding in a couple of weeks, and then the week after that, he's coming with my family to Disney World, and then we're going to get engaged and get married and, graduate, and it's going to be amazing. And then he got back, and he just said, like, hey, Serena, like, I'm sorry, but I'm going back to China, so we're breaking up. Bye. And so just like that, in one 5-minute conversation, everything that I thought I knew about my life was gone. Like, it just shattered. Like, and y'all, that was so hard. And like I said, like I mentioned, getting engaged and getting married like 100 times, that's because that's all I had been thinking about. Like, in my life is like, my whole life has led up to this relationship so that I can get married and, continue on the rest of my life. Very, stereotypical, feels like Grace College of me. And so not only was it the loss of a relationship, but it was the loss of a security of identity. It was the loss of all of my future plans, because now what? All I had been so focused on the last 2 years was, getting married to this man, and so now all of that was shattered. All of that was gone, and on top of that, it felt like every deepest fear and deepest insecurity that I had about myself was being proved true. Like every time that I had ever thought, like, wow, I'm so worthless, or like, wow, like I'm not good enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or all those things, like, just kept coming. It felt like it was being proved true. And so all of that, like it was so hard, but I still had to get up and go to work every day. I couldn't take any time off. And I also want to acknowledge that maybe some of you are in this place that I was in of like, how on earth can I even get up off the floor and stop crying and go to class right now? Like, how can I go to work and pretend like my life is not crumbling? Like, how on earth can I go to chapel and go to Alpha and go to the G-Rec, and like, how can I do all these things and act normal when the light inside me feels like it's flickering out? Like, I just want to say, like, if you're there, like, you're not alone, okay? Like, I feel you, like, I've been there, and there are people here on campus and people in your life that love you and will talk to you and will be there with you through that. And so for me, like, out of this pain, they talk about the stages of grief, of like anger and denial and all these things. And so at the time, I didn't really feel like I could be angry at my now ex-boyfriend. So I got really angry with God. Like I couldn't pray. Like I hated going to church. Like I couldn't even touch my Bible because I was just like, God, how could you do this to me? Like, how on earth could this be good? How on earth could you still love me but allow the deepest pain I've ever felt in my life? Like, how on earth can you still be the God of the universe when this is happening, when I feel like I'm about an inch tall, like when I feel completely worthless? Like, how on earth? Like, how could you? How dare you? And so it was through this, and I was so wrestling with this, and I had people in my life who were very well-intentioned, but who would say, like, oh, like, God knew this was going to happen, or like, oh, he's going to use it for good, and I was just like, you know what, I don't care. Like, I'm angry at him right now, and I don't understand, like, there's no way that this can possibly be good, and if God is so good, then why did he even let me get into this relationship in the first place if he knew it was going to end? And so through, I'm like wrestling with all of this, and my mom, asked me how I was doing, and I was like, subpar. And then she asked me, like, well, how's your relationship with God doing? And I was just honest, and it was the first time I had kind of been honest with her in that process of saying, like, honestly, like, I'm just kind of angry at God right now, and so I'm not in a great place with my faith. And I love my mom, but in that moment, she said to me, like, you're not allowed to be angry with him. Stop it and apologize. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like, I don't actually think that that's how it works with God. And so actually, I don't think I've ever told her this, but that was like a really like big moment for me in my relationship with God, because it really caused me to dig in and to realize that, like, actually, like, God created us to be like emotional beings. Like, he gave us emotions, not so that our emotions could rule us, but so that we could relate to him better. And plus, like, God knows what we're feeling anyway. So, like, if we're, like, out here praying, like, oh, God, you're so good, but secretly you're, like, mad at him in your heart, like, he already knows that, right? So, like, there's no point in trying to hide that and trying to say, like, that you're not upset with him. But, like, the thing about that is, if you are angry with God, and, like, I'm sure that there are some people in this room who are in that place right now. Like, maybe Christmas break was really hard for you, and it feels like everyone else had a really amazing Christmas break that was really restful and, like, really, like, pretty and joyful, and you saw the Instagram photos. But maybe Christmas break was really hard for you, and maybe something's happened in your life, not just over Christmas break, maybe last semester, last summer, and you're angry at God. Like, I just want to say, like, don't run from that, lean into it. Like, don't harbor that anger in your heart, because if you keep that isolated, if you keep that hidden, that Satan is going to use that, and he's going to make you, he's either going to make you hate God and completely resent him, or you're going to keep with the faith, but you're never going to be able to trust him fully because you haven't let go of that anger and that hurt that you feel like he caused you. And so if you are in that place, I just want to say, like, find somebody you can talk to, somebody, I don't know if it's like your best friend, your RA, your growth group leader, just find somebody to say, like, this is where I'm at right now, and I don't know what to do. And like, I don't know if y'all have ever read Psalms. I know I keep saying y'all, I'm not from the South, but it's just like a thing that I picked up. Anyways, so I don't know if any of you have ever read Psalms, but there are so many times where you can read it, and like, if you just like read it with like the emotional aspect of our beings present in your mind, like you can read David saying, like, God, where are you right now? Like, why am I so alone? Why am I by myself? Why are my enemies attacking me? Like, I soak my pillow with tears at night. Like, my bones are in agony within me. And I don't know about you guys, but like, to me, like, I was there. Like, I have cried more in the last like 6.5, 7 months than I've probably cried my entire life. David, if David can be emotional and say, God, where are you right now? Like, we can too. So like, just be encouraged by that. Like, we can also bring our full selves to God and say, like, God, I don't know where you're at right now, and I'm kind of upset that, like, our little selves saying, like, I'm upset at you, God. So, but like, bring your full selves to God and like, be willing to say, like, God, I'm angry at you right now, but just like David, say, I know that I can't be in that place forever, and I'm going to continue to trust you. I'm going to continue to praise you. I'm going to continue to go to church even though it don't feel like it. I'm going to continue to read my Bible. I'm going to continue to listen to worship music. I'm going to continue to go to chapel. So I just want to say, like, if you're angry with God, just like lean into that and don't run away from it. Because for me, I almost, like, this last summer, like, it's also ironic that I'm speaking because I about walked away from being a Christian. Like, I about said, like, God, you did this to me, and I'm going to, get you back, and, like, I'm going to walk away from you. But this process of, my mom saying, like, no, you're not allowed to be angry with God, and then causing me to realize, like, God is big enough to handle our emotions. Like, I feel like we don't think about that a lot in our, like, Christian world, but, like, God is big enough to handle, if we're upset at him, and he loves that, like, I actually think that God wants us to be brave and to say when we're upset with him, because he wants to say, yes, like, I know that you're hurting, but I love you and you're my child. I want to take your hurt, I want to take your pain, and I want to make it beautiful. Like, I want to heal your heart, and I want to show you such a better life that I have for you. And so for me, like, that's really been the story of this school year. And so when this school year started in August, I was kind of fresh off of all of this and didn't have all this figured out into a nice, 30-minute chapel talk. And so the school year started, and honestly, like, I kind of thought it was going to suck. I was like, wow, like, I'm going to be super lonely, and it's not going to be great. But God has used it, and he's used me being an RA to be like the biggest blessing. So not only my clustermates have been super wonderful, I feel like I mess up all the time, and they still continue to love me and show me that I am worth loving and worth listening to and worth investing in. But also the men and women that live in the lofts, and being able to connect with them and walk through some really hard stuff with a lot of them, but also being able to celebrate with them and have some really deep developed friendships with all those people, as well as other people on campus that I've met and connected with. So like, God used this thing that didn't make any sense to kind of be my saving grace, because he knew that I probably would have just sat in my room and been isolated for the entire school year, and that I would have been miserable. But God used this thing that a year and a half prior, I guess about a year prior, didn't make any sense, and was kind of like, oh, well, okay, I don't know why that's happening. So he used that thing, and also like how I mentioned, like, grad school and that how I wanted to be that. I wanted to not be that. I wanted to do that and go there. It was a really big step for me to say, like, hey, Mom, so I'm actually not going to work in corporate America, and I'm going to apply for grad school, which you have never heard of and doesn't make any sense. And you know what, like, I'm actually really excited to say, like, I am going to grad school. Like, it's official, I'm accepted. And not to, like, brag on myself, but, like, for just to show that, like, God used two things in my life that made zero sense, like, whatsoever. Like, both grad school and being an RA, like, those thoughts that I had in my mind and, like, getting hired and having those desires didn't make any sense. But, you know, like, that was God taking care of me when I couldn't see it. When I was too focused on this relationship, when I was too focused on only just getting married and that being the sole purpose of my life, God was, you know, sitting there saying, like, oh, my sweet daughter, like, I am going to take care of you in ways that you can't even imagine, ways that you can't even see, ways that don't make sense. Like, I am taking care of you, and I'm going to love you really well, even when you can't see me right now. Yeah, and so this school year has also been a time of growth. It's been a lot of empathy building. I think that happens to a lot of people when they go through some really intense, hard things. But also it's caused me to be really brave and to have a lot of hard conversations, not only with myself and with my friends, but also with my parents. Sometimes I don't know, I feel like a lot of us have those moments where we don't see quite eye to eye. And for me, it was always, oh, well, you know, like once I get married, again, that was a big idol in my life if we haven't caught on to that. I was like, oh, well, like, I'll get married, and then I'll move out, and then I don't have to have any of these hard conversations. But now, again, I believe that was God taking care of me and saying, like, no, like, I want you to engage in this. I want you to be brave, and I want you to grow through this, and I want you to trust me. I want you to trust me when it doesn't make sense. I want you to trust me when you feel like the other person is going to freak out and disown you. And so far that hasn't happened, so that's good. And so again, God is proving that he's good and that he is continuing to love me and to show me that I need to continually walk in him. Yeah, and so this school year that I thought was going to be really, really painful and really hard and was going to be filled with a lot of tears. And don't get me wrong, it's been filled with a lot of tears, right? Something that I thought could not possibly be used for good, something that I thought was going to be the end of life as I knew it, and in some ways it was. Like, God has turned that around, and he has been blessing me over and over and over. And honestly, sometimes I'm just walking through campus, and I just start crying, which is a little bit embarrassing, and I try to, like, scurry back to my room before anybody sees me. But sometimes I just start crying because I'm like, wow, God, you are so good. Like, you have loved me so well, and I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful, and I know that your plan for me is better than I ever could have imagined. And so I also want to encourage all of you, and I also want to say that, like, yes, I have grown a lot, but I'm still, like, in the middle of it. Like, I feel like a lot of times in our, when we hear, like, either chapel speakers or just somebody else, like, talking about growth, like, it's this, like, my life was sucked, and now it's, like, growth, and then, you know, it's, like, this pretty, like, little packaged thing with a bow on it that we can just throw in our closet, and, like, you know, we don't have to deal with it anymore. But that is totally not the case. Like, it feels like it is, like, the lid is off, everything is everywhere, it's still a mess. Like, I cried last night in Subco talking to Chrissy and Ryan. So, like, I'm just saying, like, it is still, I am still right in the middle of it all the time, and yeah, like I said, like, I still cry, and it's still hard, and there's still times when I'm like, wow, God, I don't know how I can trust you in this. Like, I don't know if you are really good enough, if you're really big enough to work this out. But continually, he continues to show me that he is going to work it out, that he is big enough, that he does love me, that his plans for me make so much more sense and are so much more fulfilling and so much better than anything that I could have ever imagined. And you know, that's the thing about stories is that they continue. And my story did not end with my breakup. My story did not end with the start of the school year. My story did not end with me getting into grad school. My story is still continuing, and so is yours. So thank you. I'm going to pray for us real quick. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for the snow outside, even though it makes it tricky to walk across campus. Thank you for how beautiful it is. Thank you that we have different weather that we can enjoy. Thank you for every person in this room. Thank you for how intimately involved you are in their lives. Thank you that you love them and you care so, so deeply about them. We thank you. We thank you for Jesus. We thank you for salvation. We thank you that you don't leave us alone in our sin. You don't leave us alone in our brokenness, but you care about us and you want us to be healed, and you want to love us well through that, and you want to make us more like your Son. I just thank you for this new semester. I pray that it is a new start for a lot of people. I pray that they encounter you in new ways. I pray for things that are going to be learned. I pray for, God, I pray for the pain that's going to happen this semester. And I pray that you show yourself to people. I pray that you provide comfort in ways that is revolutionary, that is life-changing. We thank you so much for today. Thank you for all the people that you have put into my life. Thank you for the people who have been so influential and who have led me back to you, and who didn't let me give up on you, who were willing to let me cry in front of them. Thank you for just who you are. Thank you so much. You are so good, and we so do not deserve it. And we love you. We love you so much, Lord. And we just pray and we thank you for MLK Day that's coming up. Thank you for all of the work that he did in our country and the inspiration that he continues to provide for us. And thank you so much, Father, in your name, amen. Okay, you guys are dismissed.
Hey, go!